Welcome to Healthcare Logic for Growth, the weekly show where we talk life sciences and healthcare in general, things like clinical operations, research, commercial strategy, market analytics, and what it takes for anyone in healthcare to grow in a sustainable way. I'm Eric Marr, your host, the founder of Life Science Logic and a current Life Science Association board member. So whether you're building a biotech, running a rural hospital, leading a home health agency, or shaping healthcare policy, this show is for you. Welcome to episode 2 of our 10-part early-stage life science series entitled Biotech in 2026, the Capital, Clinical, and Commercial Triple Threat. During our last episode, we named the 5 challenges most early-stage life science companies are facing right now. But today we go deeper into a very specific category of life sciences, and that's biotech. I want to organize this around what I call the biotech triple threat. 3 forces hitting biotech companies simultaneously in 2026 that are more connected to each other than most people realize. Capital pressure, clinical complexity, and commercial readiness, or the lack of it. So here's a quick biotech snapshot. There's plenty more, but this is for the purposes of today's episode. Here's what the biotech landscape includes right now. Capital is available, but it's gotten far more selective. Venture rounds are larger on average, but going to fewer companies at later stages with more de-risked profiles. Commercial strategy is now a fundraising requirement, not just a launch phase activity. The regulatory environment has also gotten more nuanced. You can get approved faster in some cases, but approved and commercially successful are still very different destinations, and the distance between them has not shortened. And payers are more sophisticated, more demanding than ever. The evidence you need to support a payer value story has to be built into your trial design from the beginning. Capital pressure, clinical complexity, and commercial readiness gaps are hitting simultaneously, and each one makes the others harder. That's the environment you're operating in, and it's not going away anytime soon. So, the triple threat. First, let's start with capital pressure. It's kind of the new math of biotech fundraising. Venture capital in biotech, like I said, hasn't dried up, but the distribution has changed enormously. Capital is concentrating on larger rounds at later stages, going to de-risked assets with clear clinical signals and, increasingly, evidence that the company understands its commercial opportunity as well as its science. It's a little different than the past. What this means practically, your Series B pitch is no longer just a clinical data package with a commercial slide at the end. It's a proof point that you understand your market, your payer landscape, your patient journey, and your evidence generation strategy. Investors are asking commercial questions earlier and with more sophistication, so being prepared is key. Companies without good answers find that their rounds take longer, terms are worse, or the check just doesn't come. So here's some roadblocks to avoid in thinking about this. Waiting until 6 months before you're raised to build the commercial narrative, that's a problem. By then, it's too late to address the gaps that take 12 to 18 months to close. Payer intelligence, KOL relationships, market access strategy, to name a few. Investors have seen too many well-approved drugs fail commercially to accept clinical momentum as a substitute for commercial clarity. So what are some of the practical considerations? All right. Start building the commercial narrative now. If you're 12 to 18 months from your next raise, not when you need it, right? Do it now. 1 page before a deck. If you can't explain your market opportunity, payer strategy, and commercialization model in a single page, you have talking points, not a commercial narrative. Bring a commercial advisor into your board for your next major round. It signals maturity and gives you a sounding board for questions investors will absolutely ask. Okay, the next one, clinical complexity. When trial design doesn't match commercial reality. Founders and clinical teams know they need the FDA. They need their approval. They design their trial to hit regulatory endpoints as cleanly as possible. I mean, that's rational. The problem is that payers don't care about your primary endpoint the same way the FDA does. A payer wants to know, does this work in my member population? Is it cost effective? What happens to hospitalization rates? Those questions require data that has to be planned at the trial design stage, not added on afterwards. So what are some of the roadblocks, right? Lack of preparation for clinical fulfillment. Running a payer advisory board after your pivotal trial is complete, and insufficient data for payers. So, what are the practical considerations? Build your commercial evidence strategy at the same time as you build your clinical development plan, not after. Parallel. That's something you heard me talk about in, my first episode. Run a payer advisory board before your phase 2 trial design is locked. A session with, 2-3 payer med directors will tell you more about your evidence gaps than any landscape report. And importantly, include health economic endpoints, hospitalization rates, quality of life measures, total cost of care. These are the kinds of numbers payers use to run their own models. So they're familiar and accepting of that kind of data. All right, number 3, next, commercial readiness. The infrastructure problem that shows up at the worst possible time. I've been there. Commercial readiness can catch companies off guard. It's not one thing. It's a collection of interconnected capabilities that should be built over time. And most biotechs underinvest in all of them until it's too late. Not just one, many times all of them. What does commercial readiness mean for a pre-commercial biotech? It means a clear, differentiated value narrative that answers why this, why now, why from you, for each of your audiences. It means a mapped payer landscape, who the relevant payers are, what their coverage criteria look like, and your strategy for navigating barriers. Before launch, not at launch. It means early KOL relationships. Physicians who will be your clinical champions need to understand your science before your sales team shows up. Those relationships take years to build. And it means a clear commercialization model. Are you building a sales force? Partnering? Licensing? What are you going to do next? And are you prepared? Many biotechs are still debating these kinds of things 12 months before launch. It's too late. Some of the roadblocks to avoid here. Treating commercial readiness as a launch phase activity. Not having narratives specific to a unique audience. By the time you're 6-12 months from launch, the window to build your payer relationships, generate real-world evidence, and develop KOL network has already closed. But, as always, here's some practical considerations. Run a commercial readiness assessment 36 months before your projected launch date. Build your value narrative in layers. A 30-second version, a 2-minute version, and a full evidence-based version. Each audience needs a different entry point. Treat KOL development as a relationship program, not a campaign. Map the 10 to 15 docs or physicians in general, clinical experts, whomever, who matter the most for your launch, and build an 18-month engagement plan. A quick reminder. These threats, capital, clinical, commercial, aren't sequential. They're simultaneous, and they're interdependent. Your capital story depends on your commercial readiness. Your commercial readiness depends on your trial design. Managing them as separate work streams is where most biotech companies lose time, money, and frankly, the opportunity. So, let me share with you what many successful companies do differently. These are biotech companies navigating this very well. First, they've made a decision to bring commercial thinking into the clinical development process early, not by hiring a big commercial team, but by bringing in someone, a fractional COO or a fractional chief commercial officer, a board advisor, an experienced operator whose job is to ask the commercial question at every stage gate. Second, they're investing in payer intelligence before they need it. That's critical. Getting real information about payer coverage criteria and health economic expectations early enough that it can actually influence trial design. Who knew? Third, they're building KOL and clinical champion relationships as a long-term strategy, not a pre-launch campaign. And fourth, they're treating their investor narrative and their commercial narrative as the same document. It almost is. If you have different stories for different audiences, it usually means you don't have a clear commercial narrative yet. The best companies have one clear story, and they tell it consistently, compellingly, and early. So let me give you a brief episode summary. The biotech triple threat is real and interconnected. Capital pressure, clinical complexity, and commercial readiness gaps hit simultaneously. Managing them as one integrated system is your competitive advantage. Use it. Trial design is a commercial decision, not just a regulatory one. The endpoints you choose, the data you generate, all of it has downstream commercial consequences. Build the commercial evidence strategy before the trial is locked. Number 3, commercial readiness is a program, not a project. It runs alongside your clinical and regulatory work, not after it. You're going to get tired of me saying this. Parallel. Number 4, one integrated commercial narrative beats 3 separate work streams every time. Consistency across investors, payers, physicians, and partners is a sign of clarity, and clarity is a competitive advantage. So as you know, at the end of all of these episodes, we try to provide thoughts on a go-forward strategy, things you can actually use today. Number 1, map your trial design against payer coverage criteria now. Pull up your current trial protocol. Next to each primary and secondary endpoint, ask, would a payer medical director find this endpoint compelling? If you can't answer confidently, that's your first gap. Number 2, build your commercial narrative before your next investor meeting. Write one page, not a deck, one page, that defines what the market opportunity is, who the relevant payers are, and what do they need to see. Who are the physician leaders who will champion this? And what does the evidence package look like at launch? If you can't write that page today, that's the work. Number 3, have one payer conversation this quarter. Reach out to a regional health plan medical director, a PBM, a national plans pharmacy director, and tell them you're in clinical development and want to understand their evidence needs before your trial is locked. You know what? Most will take that meeting. Lastly, the roadblocks we covered today and the practical considerations we briefly worked through are meant to be useful, not discouraging. The companies that navigate the triple threat most effectively are paying attention to the right things at the right time, and the results are good, sometimes great. You can be too. Thanks for spending time with me today on Healthcare Logic for Growth. If this episode brought you value, share it with someone in your network who's navigating their own commercial journey. I think they'll appreciate it. And if you have a healthcare-related topic you want me to tackle, leave me a note at eric@lifesciencelogic.com. Thanks again. I hope you'll join me on the next episode.